Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot. So this morning, I woke up and I started looking into the emails, and I noticed, some days are just kind of like that lower energy. They just kind of feel low, kind of things aren't moving as quickly. Today, this morning, people were feeling sad, and one person in particular reached out and just kind of was asking something that was voiced by a couple of others, but the way they asked it, it was just, is there any hope for this? Is this completely over? Um, I'm trying to understand what I should do, but right now it's just very emotional. It's not very decisive, that sort of thing. And so I thought, let me just go ahead and look into this energy and making, involving that general energy in the comments that you guys woke up with today and shared with me. I'm just going to go ahead and bring that into it. But we're going to ask the question, not so much, is this relationship hopeless or is it doomed, but more, what's the nature of it? What should you be doing at this point? How are things kind of moving along and what's different about today? So, those are kind of all the questions that we want to have in there. It'll be a general reading, of course, as always. It's going to be a general reading for this collective. So, if it does not, if you find that it does resonate with you, then you may want to look at some of some of the other messages that have come through. You may also want to subscribe so that you can continue getting the messages. Um, we're going to go ahead and start with the daily question that we always like to start with, which is basically that emotional and energetic backdrop. So, starting out with that, you guys have given me a little bit of that today. Your take on it has been a little bit slow, a little bit sad, a little bit not being too sure about things, but being sure. Well, you know what, though, it does have this edge of self trust. So, there is. A certain sad confidence, I think, that shows up for me in these videos or in these notes that you've sent me. Also, something that seems like you're in the middle of a change. So something has ended, but the new thing has not grown in its place. And there's a feeling about a feeling for that. So maybe it hasn't not grown at all, but maybe it just hasn't grown quickly enough. That might be what it is. It's got that feeling of not quite doing what it needs to do for you emotionally right now. But it feels temporary. I had a couple of cards fall. They fell face up. We're going to go ahead and use them. So we've got the Two of Pentacles. It's a feeling of this isn't throwing you completely off balance. It's more, and this probably applies to your person too, but I'm getting you much more loudly in this. It feels more like it actually doesn't threaten your balance. It's just a feeling that you're observing and not feeling particularly thrilled about. There is a sense of looking back, though. It's almost a nostalgic kind of feeling, but it's a little bit more, what do I think about this? And with the Judgment card, that makes good sense. We've got the Lover's card in reverse here, and what's really happening with this one, it doesn't feel like and we have the Four of Swords in reverse here. It doesn't feel like the healing is done that needs to be done, and yet there's been a lot of push over the last few weeks for reunion, for trying to get in a place of reunion without having gone through that individual and mutual reconciliation thoroughly enough. In some places, there's a lot of individual reconciliation that's happened for one of you, in many cases, you, but not so much for your person. So there's been time that's passed, in some cases, quite a bit of time, but the healing isn't really done yet. So there's that kind of feeling. And we saw nostalgia there in the honorable mention as I was turning the card over. You have the Knight of Wands. Knight of Wands, but in the reverse. And the way that the Knight of Wands in the reverse is reading, it's a very in again, out again sort of energy. So if you've been communicating with your person, it's probably been a little sporadic. And in this, it doesn't feel like it's helped things move in the right direction as much as it probably has. Things feel very off as far as like your long-term balance right now feels not so much off as is unresolved, and a feeling of not being able to just kind of flow with it. With the Temperance card in the reverse, there's a feeling of needing to flow with it, but not really being able to do so. But with the Three of Swords in the upright, we see why there's some definite brokenheartedness in this energy. So those of you who are waking up and saying it feels very sad, this is definitely part of the feeling that comes through. It feels sad just to read it, honestly. It's got a significant element of quiet, slowness, looking back, looking at things with a critical eye, and not feeling necessarily like you can move forward with things that you would want to move forward with. So there's a little bit of, I don't know, it's not quite frustrated because it's a much slower energy than that, but a little bit disillusioned in this energy. I can see why I'm getting the question, is it just over? Is it doomed? What should I be looking at for this person? Is there any hope for this relationship? So let's get in here and ask that question. Is there any hope for the relationship? What is happening with the energy of the relationship with regard to that question? And I'm just going to go ahead and phrase it like that, because I feel like as I was watching all of the dropped a card, as I was watching the emails this morning as they were coming in, and just kind of as I was reading them, I was in and out of meditation as well, and I was kind of like, no, it's definitely this feeling of what's there. So we have the Venus card. This is the Empress card. It is the card of feminine energy, divine feminine energy, and it's like the divine feminine energy is very present in the energy this morning, in the energy of today. It is also very present in the overall relationship, but I'm not feeling the balance with the masculine right now. So there's something that I think, I don't know how that's going to play out in the rest of the cards, but it feels like there's a little bit of a more of a balanced feminine than masculine overall in the energy right now, but I'm not sure what the result of that is, because that could be a couple of things. It could be that could help to pull the masculine side up. We have the Justice card, and with the Justice card, it's really a matter of, it's something being made right. It's something being made right, but actually having the ability to make it right, I think, is what's exciting, because we've also got the Magician. So we've got the Magician card and the Justice card. This is wanting to make things right, having part of the balance there. This is not the energy of something that is doomed. You could be done with it, but it's not doomed. Yeah, there's a decision that needs to be made here overall with the direction that this needs to go. And it feels like you are kind of more trending toward that direction. I've gotten some messages from some of you who have been very frustrated lately, and I've been tempted to do the reading about, I feel like I'm done and I need to move on. What should I be doing, with that? And I wondered if this might dovetail into that, but this doesn't feel at all like it's ended. It feels like making things more balanced, making things more right. There is still that devil energy in there. So there's still something definitely that you have to work against. Just remember that when you push, you get equal and opposite. There's an equal and opposite reaction, the other direction. And the thing is that this is not saying you wouldn't want to fix, or you wouldn't want to change, or you wouldn't want to unchain yourself from whatever it is that's controlling you. So there's something controlling each of you in this relationship. We've seen it in a lot of the energy. There's going to be a feeling of control where it's around a third party, it's around a family member, it's around something that's happening, a dynamic at work. It could be a substance, it could even be overthinking. Both of you have something that you're kind of fighting against, it feels like here. And then this energy, this relationship both brings it to the surface for you and allows you to fight it. It has the same, it brings the energy to allow you to fight it. And not only that, but it brings you the lessons that help you to make more sense of it, So there's a little bit of the question was what's kind of the nature of this. There's nothing here that says there's no hope. There's nothing here that says this relationship is doomed. There is something here that says a change is not done occurring. So we see that over here with the Phoenix card. It's the equivalent of the Death card here in the Constellation Tarot. And then here is literally the Death card. And that is in the Dali Tarot. And it is... So it's coming out in both decks in reverse and coming out to tell you that things aren't done changing yet. Things are still in a process of change. We also see, though, that change has stilled or stopped. It doesn't give me the sense of stagnation. It gives me the sense of things needing to have slowed down to allow for the energy surrounding you to get quiet enough that you can do the healing that needs to be done. Because there's an element of healing that needs to be done that in all the noise of this, in all the emotion of this, just has not gotten done. And we see that a little bit here in this energy, the sense of the healing just kind of not having gotten done. That's quite legitimately the biggest part of the problem. It's not something that should be done necessarily. Like, it takes time, and things have stopped here to give you guys that time to make the changes. So it isn't hopeless, but it might feel a little bit that way as you're working through some of this controlling energy, as you're working through some of the difficulties, this impasse that the two of you have been working on. So this has come out since the beginning of these readings on YouTube with me, the Two of Wands in the reverse, and it's going to be that whatever that difference is between the two of you. There's a difference that they haven't yet reconciled that for whatever reason is plaguing them, but does not plague everybody. So it's an age difference, or it's a religious difference. It's something that doesn't matter to everybody, but for whatever reason is being touted as an excuse, at least within their own minds, as a reason not to come towards you. But they've got this Page of Cups that says they've got things they want to tell you. They haven't lost the desire to tell you things as they happen. They still, and part of what's frustrating for your person is they look at this and say, oh, I wish I could tell this. I could tell you, and they want to tell you, but they are not allowing themselves to share it with you, even if this is the person that you're looking at across like the living room who occupies the same space but won't communicate in any meaningful way. There's desire to. There just isn't an ability to get past the wall. And it's a lot of it is generated by this impasse. It seems like a small card, but it feels like a big card. And there's this drive to get things right and to get more balanced. And yet both of you having this decision to make it's a little bit of like it feels like a stalemate, but it's because the energy has really stopped moving and everything is kind of stopped mid-transformation in order to give you time to get where you need to go with this. Let's look to see where you need to focus, because I think when we get into the extended, we're just going to take this very question and drill down into it. That's what I want to do in this one. Sometimes it's like, here's that top layer of energy, what we're getting out of those initial cards. Then we get in and clarify, and then in the extended, we get in and really do the deep dive. We need to understand a little bit more kind of what the status is of this relationship, because there's been so much of this. I have an impasse, and yet I have a desire to reach out and have a communication. It's been to their detriment here in some of these conversations in the last few weeks. We've definitely seen that, where they come in, they don't know what to say, it sputters back out, they disappear, but it feels a little bit more like they haven't gone anywhere, and yet it's uncomfortable and awkward. There's kind of that feeling. And then some of them have not actually gotten as far as to hit send on the communication and to establish contact, but the awkwardness is still there. And so it's difficult not to feel it, especially with this healing not done. So we'll go into this a little bit more and understand. I asked the question around the nature of the relationship, and I like that. I want to keep that in here because I think that's part of what really has come out. But let's look at you. Let's look at what your direction direction ought to be and kind of what your focus ought to be in this situation. So we've got the Ten of Wands. Again, we're focusing on the burden of what you carry, but that doesn't necessarily make sense for you to carry. So part of the burden that you're carrying from a responsibility perspective probably shouldn't belong to you. It's something that you don't have enough control over to assume responsibility for it. But there is a desire to control it. So this is something that, with the Emperor in reverse, is something that you would like to control, but you don't necessarily have control of. And it isn't so much that you'll never have control of it, it's that you don't currently have control of it. So this is the Six of Wands. And so the Six of Wands is a card of victory when it comes to you in the upright. When it comes to you in the reverse, it can be a card of not being victorious. But in this case, it's really not about not being victorious. It's really much more about not being victorious yet. You know, with this Death card in the reverse here and in this current energy, it's really just kind of, it's sticking in your craw. It's showing up right now. But as we can see with these, there's something that's very much in progress. And that is why we're getting the Six of Wands in the reverse. It's the battle hasn't ended yet. You haven't gotten to a resolution just yet. So here we have the Nine of Swords in the reverse. This is actually a really great energy for you because it's like in the midst of all of this, you're able to sit back and not necessarily make good sense of it, but at least not be in a place where you're losing a bunch of sleep over it and completely incapable of functioning. You know, this is a card of overthinking and anxiety to the point of not being able to sleep through it. And you may be having some rough nights, but it's not the way that it could be. I believe that is because you've already been through some of this and you've already kind of figured out what you will and won't, what your limits are. You have some idea of what your limits are. We have the High Priest here in the reverse, and this is about that connection to the higher power. So there's something about that connection to the higher power that is waning right now. It may be that you're trying to get to the meditation and haven't had a chance to. It may be that your schedule isn't working out, and this one kind of gives me that your schedule isn't working out. It feels like there's a lot of things that are kind of working against you having that good connection with your higher power and your higher self right now. I would say keep working on it. That's definitely the advice here, is to just jump back in, continue working on it, continue trying to establish that communication with yourself, with your higher power on a regular basis, so that within meditation and prayer, you should be able to do that. But it's about being able to find time and motivation when you have that time and to prioritize it. It's about being able to prioritize it. The easiest time to do meditation is right after a workout. So if you're a morning workout person, maybe slide that meditation in right before you get into the shower. That's my magic way to get it done. I do a lot of yoga, and when I get done, I don't even get off the mat before the meditation starts. That way, that communing with my higher self gets to happen. And it's also where some of the ideas come from that show up in these readings. Those come to me as the kind of the spiritual downloads. It's an interesting thing. Okay, so you've got a Nine of Cups, but it's in the reverse. This is about understanding what you want and going out to get it. It's not necessarily a particularly easy thing to do, especially when you're seriously questioning your own self-trust. So we saw here that there is enough trust in self to be able to say, I understand that today is a little bit of a down day. And as a couple of you said, I know this is only temporary. And as this energy comes out in the daily energy, it is definitely a temporary feeling, but it's playing on some doubts that are very real within you. So there's a sense of still having some doubts that you and your healing are going to make short work of. But part of it has to do with figuring out the direction that you really want to go, because that is not necessarily clear here. It feels like that direction is changing a little bit, so it's kind of a trick question. And especially with the environmental energies not always necessarily working out with you today, it may just be a matter of understanding that today may be a day of smaller steps rather than a day of large, leaps, you know, because in August we've got a lot of, there's this feeling of leaps, and so to come across a day that just feels like you can't necessarily make huge leaps, it's going to be okay, but it may take a little bit from you from an egoistic perspective, although it feels like that's something that's happening anyway. There's something in your self-worth that feels like it is suffering a little bit here. And it's the doubts popping up again, and it's not new doubts. It's just doubts that you're being able to see for one reason or another. Somebody may have said something, looked at you funny. It doesn't seem like it needed to be very much to give you this feeling. And yet you're kind of, you know, with the doubt, it's a tough thing for you to keep your heart open, and you've got the sense of still wanting to keep your heart open. With the Queen of Cups, you know it's the right thing to do. You know that the right thing to do is to kind of open yourself up to the experience, to truly live it, to learn the lessons that are here, to really gather those lessons to yourself. And this collective is really fabulous about doing that. However, some days that's just really hard. It doesn't feel like, with the energy moving as slowly as it is and kind of keeping you down in it and saying, all right, I'm going to go ahead and let you experience this so that you can get where you need to go, because it's not a place where you would ordinarily go, force yourself to experience it quite in the way that it feels like it's coming out today. It is an awkward energy, but it's that energy of not having quite healed and yet having enough healing under your belt that you understand. So you can kind of see the discomfort, but you can't really get out of the discomfort. And here the object is not necessarily to get out of the discomfort, but by no means is the relationship hopeless. The relationship is not doomed. Let's take a closer look at this when we get into the extended, just to kind of understand, like, what is the expectation, what is happening here, and what more can we learn about this. We'll also look into you a little bit more in the extended, and a little bit more of what practically you can be doing to work through this kind of energy. I feel like, and this is a little bit unusual for me, but I'm going to go ahead and grab you an oracle card during the first reading. Usually I do these in the extended, but I feel like I want to get you one here, and we'll probably still get you one when we get into the extended. Just a message that wants to come out for you, and it feels like one does. I feel like that's why I needed to pick up this deck, but I don't want to try and put questions around it. Okay. So you got the One Ring Circus card, and I happened to notice that it was at the bottom of the deck after I shuffled this deck this morning, and I thought, how appropriate. Even though obviously it wasn't part of a very intentional pre-shuffle or anything, it just felt like it was appropriate. This is the One Ring Circus card, and you know what, really, this card can come out meaning a couple of different things, but what it really feels like right now is the focus on you and your healing is really where it's at. You have plenty to focus on within this One Ring Circus. It really is kind of the place where you have your sphere of influence. Because remember, up here it says you're taking on responsibility for some of the things that you're not able to control. You may be trying to establish some additional control. Keep in mind what's actually within your sphere of influence and focus on that, because it's going to improve really all of this. It's going to improve the balance. It's going to improve where you are. That's a great message. I'm glad that one came out. Okay, so we'll go to the extended and get in a little bit deeper on just kind of what's happening with this relationship right now, because it feels like a difficult place within the relationship and what you can be doing about it. If you're interested, the link is down below. Please take a look there. Otherwise, I will look forward to seeing you again in tomorrow's reading.